and welcome to everybody today for our Williamson Community Leadership Program 2026 information session. That is quite the title. We will be talking today with the wonderful Katie McDevitt, Dr. Katie McDevitt, who is the Faculty Lead for Leadership Victoria, and our two wonderful Williamson Fellows, Belinda Bravo and Samus Bradley. I would like to first introduce myself. My name is Tara Crow and I am the Partnerships Lead here at Leadership Victoria. I would like to acknowledge that I'm coming at you from Footscray in the inner west of Melbourne on Boonwurrung country, and I acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land. We at Leadership Victoria, we deeply respect and acknowledge the First Nations people and the commitment that they've made to caring for country, water, sky and land, as well as the leadership that they continue to provide us here. And we walk alongside them in their path for treaty and truth. Thank you everyone for being here today. I would like to hand over to Katie, if that's okay. Thank you.
Fine, thanks Tara. Hi everybody, it's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm one of the core people that you'll get to know as and when you join the Williamson program in future. I'm very fortunate to work with the rest of the LV team, and Nkosi is here with us today, as is Danny, and I believe that Jody is also watching along here as well. And so we are very proud to be in our 35th year of supporting leaders. Not me personally, I'm far too young for that, of course, but overall that's how long Williamson has been cultivating the leadership powers of all of the amazing talent that we've got here in the state of Victoria. Moving forwards to think about our vision, purpose and values. At Leadership Victoria, we are purpose-driven, and the leaders that we work with tend to be that way too. We share a common purpose around how we see leadership serving the needs of future community, future society. And I would say underneath this, there's a common belief that leadership is important in order to make change that matters. So my hope is that this is something that interests you as well, and perhaps take a moment now to reflect on what purpose you might have that you could further by coming and learning in the 10 months of the Williamson program. And in a while we'll hear from Belinda and Seamus as well about what brought them to Williamson. Maybe that will inspire you as well. Thank you, Tara. So my role is to look after all of the leaders who take part in the Williamson Community Leadership Program. And today, all I really want to do is to step through briefly some of what you can expect in the program. And I would like to think that from this part of the presentation, you'll get a sense of the size and the shape of the animal. There's a lot that we can't explain ahead of time about Williamson. You just need to be in the experience. But as far as possible, I'd love to see if we can equip you with some of what you need today to make a decision about whether this is the right program for you. And I hope that it will be. So we do focus on the experience of being in the Williamson program. It's a practical program. It is all about leadership seen as an activity, not as a position. And so we've all, I'm sure, can think of a leader who had the most impressive position in the world and did sometimes not the best things with it. So we really do focus on what you can do as a leader. The definition of leadership that you can see on the screen here is one that comes up in Williamson. Leaders mobilise other people in order to make progress towards outcomes that matter so that more people in community can thrive. So it's all about moving from where we are today to a future state in which your leadership has made that kind of difference. And just acknowledging these are complex times that we live in, and the demands on leaders are immense. You know this from your own experience. And so one of the key questions in Williamson then becomes, how do we grapple with our own potential to make change that is important, that does make a difference? And how do we do that together? So have a think about that. It's a big opportunity to combine forces with other people through the course of the program. Thanks, Tara. So the group that you will be joining as you come to the Williamson program might look something like this. These are the 2024 folk. You see them on the screen at the beginning of their journey there at the top, and then a little bit further on. I think that's at Move, which is one of the venues that we visit in Shepparton during the year. So you can expect as an important part of your Williamson experience to become part of a close-knit and collaborative group of peers. And if you've ever felt that you're pushing the boulder up the hill by yourself as a leader, this is the chance to change that. We want leaders to be able to collaborate together and to form relationships that are in support of each and every single person's leadership. It's a rare opportunity, actually. And some leaders will say to me from time to time, this program has given them the relationships that they wished that they had earlier on in their career. So it's a big opportunity to build really collaborative, mutually supportive and very trusting relationships with other leaders. And there may be as many as 40 to 50 other leaders in the program when you come here. Thanks, Tara. Now, from the program, you can expect to encounter certain things. The program is built around an approach to leadership that's called adaptive leadership. Williamson is one of the few programs of this size and significance in Australia that offers the opportunity to explore adaptive leadership. It's a global leadership development approach that originated in Harvard, and it's used all the way around the world. While we're working in a very place-based way here in Victoria, it's important also to understand that this connects you with a global leadership network of people that are doing purpose-driven work in complex situations. I've mentioned that it's collaborative, and you will have the opportunity to get to know an unusually diverse group of leaders. They're drawn from all sorts of different sectors and backgrounds, from arts and charities, through government and health, through public sector and corporate organisations as well. It's a chance to dig into what matters to you, your values, your ethics and your beliefs, and also some of the assumptions and blind spots that you might be carrying that you want to work to overcome. There's an opportunity to do that in this program. And I've mentioned being part of the network. Just to add to that, adding to your professional networks here means becoming part of a community of now a couple of thousand Williamson Fellows who are out there. And so that genuinely becomes your support community for you to move forwards beyond the program. And we do that in collaboration with the community as well. And so we have a number of program experiences that I'll step through in just a moment that bring you effectively into a broad and deep dialogue with leaders, organisations and members of community whose voices you need to hear as a leader in order to understand what do we need to work on, where do we need to lead in order to make change. Okay, thank you, Tara. So I won't step through the program details in the program outcomes in detail today, but just to know that where we're heading with Williamson is towards benefits that help you individually and benefits that help your organisation, your sector and your community. This is about understanding yourself, what makes you tick, and how you can tap into your own unique strengths. And it's also about applying that in all of the best contexts, all of the places where you can make a difference. Thank you, Tara. We've put together year to year a curated program of experiences that are designed to provide an environment where you can experience support and challenge. So you may have heard of something called the learning zone. It's outside your comfort zone, and it's not stretching you so much that you have to tap out. We want you in that learning zone, which means that there's a lot of support in the program, but there's also an expectation that you're there to stretch yourself and challenge. And part of that is around how you engage with the diversity of thought and experience that's available to you within the cohort, and also in dialogue with all the amazing people that you'll meet as we go through the different experiences of the program. We have a monthly theme day where we focus on the themes of belonging, privilege, power, which is what we're focusing on at the moment in the program, power and agency, and prosperity and enchantment. So hopefully those are intriguing to you. We come together on leadership days once a month as well. And leadership days are a day for us to really get into the learning lab and experiment and practice different methods and approaches that will help us to progress in the capabilities involved in leadership. So think lots of workshops, lots of activities designed to bring you together in that learning lab environment. We have 4 immersives in the program. The start of the year and the end of the year, we come together on Tungaran Country in Marysville. And then twice in the program, we have a regional immersive. And so over the past few years, we have gone to Shepparton and the Goulburn Valley region. And we also go to the southwest coast to Warrnambool as well. And then we also have collective impact projects. And so in Williamson, you'll have the opportunity to work on at least 2 things here. The first is, how do you actually have an impact now? Tangible and present and concrete. Where can you make a difference? Where can you get that lever under the boulder today so that you can make some difference on something that matters? But also, how do you keep learning? And who needs to learn what in order to make change? So leading in practice while you're learning. And we do that together through collective impact projects. Thanks, Tara. And then lastly, the month by month. And I should say that there is an indicative schedule that is available. And so if you haven't already seen that, that will come to you. Essentially, we're sharing this today so that you can see we layer these elements of the program so that each month you're actually learning by combining the different elements so that you can tackle the issues, build the capabilities, do your impact work. So effectively, you're sort of adding to your backpack throughout the 10 months. And my role and Jodie's role as co-faculty will be to support and guide you along this so that it stays in that learning zone. It is a lot to take on. It is a big commitment, as I'm sure Belinda and Seamus will attest to in a moment. However, we've put it together in a way that makes sense, that holds together, and that will hold you through a period of what can be transformational change. So we're very excited to see what comes in the next few months as you explore this potential to take part in Williamson. I'm wishing you a really fruitful and fascinating exploration of whether this is the right fit for you at this stage in your career. I encourage everybody to apply. We really want all of the best and most amazing talent in this program for next year. We need you with us. So please put your name in the ring. And where we're heading is to a future where you too are a Williamson Fellow. And that's a future worth aiming for. So I will finish there and hand over to Belinda and Seamus to tell us a little bit more about what that journey has been like and perhaps what you've done since the program. Thanks, both of you.
Thank you. Belinda.
Thanks, Katie. Oh, thanks, Seamus. Hi, everyone. My name's Belinda Bravo. I was part of the Williamson Community Leadership Program in 2020. My role is Head of Alcohol and Other Drugs at North Richmond Community Health. So I oversee our AOD programs, including the medically supervised injecting room, which is the only supervised injecting or safe injecting facility in Victoria. I wanted to also acknowledge coming to you from the stolen lands of the Wurundjeri people. Maybe I'll start by sharing a little bit about me. I came to the role that I'm in not necessarily through a linear journey, like I'm sure many of you. I started out my career as an early career academic, so I trained as a historian, had my PhD, and through a series of circumstances found my way into the Victorian public sector, where I stayed for close to 17, 18 years, working in a range of different management and leadership roles. So initially I was working in education, so had the opportunity to work on such things like the deregulation of the vocational education and training sector. Then in the Department of Health, was working in mental health policy in the lead up and during the Royal Commission. And then in the last sort of period of my time in the public service was working, had the very great privilege of working with Ken Lay to attempt to establish the second supervised injecting room in Melbourne. I guess in terms of Williamson, I came into the program with some clear ideas about what I was looking for. I mean, certainly I was looking to be challenged, that goes without saying. But I was really particularly interested in the opportunity for Leadership Victoria to give me the opportunity to be doing this work alongside of people who I otherwise wouldn't really have had the opportunity to professionally engage with. So the fact that I was in a group with people who worked at ANZ, people who worked in large charities, people who worked in local government was a really great opportunity, because I think it begins to shape your understanding about how common some of our leadership challenges are, irrespective of our context. The other aspect about the appeal of Williamson for me was also, I was very clear I didn't want a particularly academic focus. I didn't want to be doing something that meant I was spending hours and hours writing 5,000 word essays. I was very much looking for something that was experiential. And I think one of the things about Williamson is that it's not just giving you the opportunity to engage with content, but it's also creating a space for you to attempt something new, often to fail spectacularly and then to try again. And that's not a particularly common thing in a lot of leadership programs, where often the stakes can feel quite high. In terms of what I got out of Williamson, I think there was a number of us who throughout the journey we had in 2020 said to each other, I wonder how many of us will be doing the same job by the end of the year, because it really does change your understanding about what you think is valuable, what you think has purpose. I think one of the things that I learnt from the program and have really been able to find incredibly useful in my existing job is an ability to be curious in a way that probably I wouldn't have before. So rather than making an assumption about someone, their background, their context based on views they were putting forward, really asking more questions, asking them to tell me more. And I think, that sort of leads on to probably the biggest learning for me was really a much deeper appreciation about what it actually takes to engage in complex social problems and debates. A lot of these aren't won on the margins. They're one in the middle, and it's about creating a space to bring people in and giving them an opportunity to feel genuinely heard. In the context of the work that I do at the moment, there's obviously a range of different views in the broader community about supervised and safe injecting. That's very much mirrored in the staff that I work with, more than 150 staff who come from a range of backgrounds, and where we really need to be curious about our practice, to be curious about the work that we do in order to make a difference for a community of people who really have very little access to service and are significantly disadvantaged as a result. Those are the things that came out of the program for me. So really encourage you to think hard about what you'd like to do and what you'd like to get out of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Belinda. Over to you, Seamus.
That was fantastic. My background is in journalism. I was a news editor at The Age, associate editor at the Sunday Age. I've edited everything from opinion, everything except sport. I don't know anything about sport. Don't care about sport either. But in terms of what Williamson did, it gave me a huge network. We call it a network, but actually it's a friendship group now. We've been together for 17 years. We meet regularly, most of us. Some of us are overseas. Some of us are in Argentina. Some of us are in the UK. Some of us are in America, for now anyway. And some, I think, are even in Africa doing some work. So what it has done, Saudi Arabia as well. So what it has done is provided a network. It's provided a place for advice. For instance, I was doing a major project. At one point, it was a health-related project, multimedia project. And I had a friend within the police who introduced me to the commissioner. I had a friend through Williamson in one of the major hospitals who introduced me to the CEO of the major hospital, and we made it all come together. And through that, they introduced me to somebody in Ambulance Victoria in the flying wing, so we were able to get a camera crew onto the helicopters and do amazing award-winning multimedia work that ended up on TV. But that was only just part of it. Like, the network is very fine. It's everywhere. And I think what everybody has missed out on so far in terms of Williamson and the program, yes, it's practical. Yes, it's experimental. Yes, you're building these networks. Yes, you're making friends. Yes, you're getting wonderful experiences. But nobody tells you, at least so far, nobody said it's quite a lot of fun too. Like, it's a lot of fun. And I think what it did for us was, in our particular cohort, was it took 36 of us that year. It put us into rooms together. It made us engage with each other in terms of a set of rules. One is you don't breach confidence. You always be polite. If you disagree in a polite manner. There's a whole set of rules that goes with that. And we built massive trust. We built the kind of trust in a year that takes 20 years to build otherwise, I think. And it now means that, when somebody rings a friend of mine, they ring me and say, hey, the Hurl Sun's on the line, what should I do? And I say, which reporter is it? They'll say who it is. I'll say, don't talk to that one, or that one's okay. You know what I mean? And then I can do that to them as well. They'll always take the call. That's the other thing that I found. The cohort that we have always took the call, and there's never an issue. I mean, one wonderful story, a very, very high-performing person who was in our cohort got an amazing award, and she wanted to share it with her people at work, but she kind of thought they'd be a little bit jealous. The way industries are, they're a little bit jealous. She shared it with us, and we all had a party. She knew that she could come to that particular cohort for the kind of support that she needed to be able to say, hey, look, I've achieved this amazing things. It wasn't a Nobel, but I think she'll get one. Well, but it was an amazing thing she had achieved, and the people she could share it with was us, because she knew that we'd all just be there for her. It's a rare thing, I think. I've got friends from school and university like you have, and from various workplaces. But this kind of trust building takes so much longer otherwise. And I think I'll just add that part to the bit about the program and the networks and the friendships and so on, if that's helpful to anybody.
Thanks, Seamus. It's so wonderful to hear that between the two of you, Belinda and Seamus, you both have very different takeaways. And I think that's very true to a lot of the participants that we see come through the Williamson program, that it is kind of something for everybody. I would love for you to think now, if I can ask you a question, Belinda and Seamus, what were you thinking before you went into Williamson about what you were going to get out of it, maybe compared to what you did get out of it as a personal leadership journey? Maybe you're nodding your head, Seamus. Over to you first.
Oh, no. I was hoping you wouldn't do that. I heard about Williamson through a friend of a friend, because I needed something, but I didn't need the usual thing. And I'd been having that discussion around town with various people for a while. And somebody introduced me to a person who'd done the Williamson the year before. And I had that conversation about what is it and what does it do and what am I going to get out of it. And nobody could be precise. And I can tell you now, having done the Williamson thing, I still can't be precise. I can't tell you that you will walk away with $1 million, you will walk away with your head expanded or whatever. Nobody who did it, because that's what I do, I'm a journalist. I'll come along and I'll ask people the questions. What was it? What did you get from it? How much did it cost? Where did it go? Was it worth it? And they all said it was worth it. But the particular explanations were so varied that you couldn't actually pin it down. And even after doing it, I still can't pin it down. But
and as a journalist as well, Seamus.
Yeah, it's not pin downable. It's not pin downable because it's not one thing. It's a dynamic. It's a flowing, living, breathing, moving group of people all going in the same direction. But it's not. If you could summarize it in a sentence, it wouldn't be a thing. It wouldn't be real. It wouldn't be live. If that makes any sense to anybody, because it was. I mean, even the guy who did it before me, he encouraged me to go. He still couldn't tell me what it was, and he still can't years and years and years later. But I think there's magic in that and power in that.
Yeah, thank you. Very poetic. Thanks, Seamus. Belinda.
I think going into the program, I thought a lot about my own development and what this would mean for me. I think I surprised myself with how much of an opportunity I took to be very vulnerable with the group. And I think that sort of goes back to what Seamus was saying. I think there's a lot of great sort of scaffolding within the program that can support people to talk about some very informative aspects of their early life that really shape the way they see the world. And I think I really ran with that in a way that I probably was a little bit surprised about, because as Seamus points out, these people are go very quickly from being strangers to being people that you're sharing a lot of deep personal insights. I really valued the fact that the program sort of gave me that opportunity and didn't have any regrets. And I think it's really informed how I continue to do that on my leadership journey, and that with the people I work with, that I speak very much with vulnerability and with sincerity about the things that I really care about.
Yeah, wonderful. I will encourage now our attendees today that if you do have any questions, any specific questions that you'd like to target towards either Katie or Belinda or Seamus or even myself, please.
I'm not sure whether I changed as a person or it really reaffirmed the direction that I was going in. Certainly when I first started the program, I was actually working in the Department of Health, and I was doing a lot of work on the early implementation of the recommendations from the first sort of interim report of the Royal Commission into Mental Health Services. And I started to think about what I had to offer in that space. So that did precipitate me eventually moving into drug and alcohol policy, where I felt like I had the potential to make more impact. So certainly the markers of change were there, but I think it probably reinforced that I wanted to make more of an impact than what I was at the time. So it kind of gave me a toolkit of questions that helped with that process.
Yeah, wonderful. Seamus, anything to add?
I don't think it changed me fundamentally as a person, but what it did do was it gave me that extra perspective. I think this is what Belinda is saying as well. It gives you extra perspective, extra understanding, these deep experiences that you may or may not have otherwise, probably not. And it then also gives one the chance to perform, if you like, perform. Like you're up there, you're standing in front of lots and lots of people, you're asking questions. I remember at one point I asked a very rude question, because one does as a former editor and journalist, we ask rude questions. Everybody behind me saying, you can't ask that. And I said, well, of course I can ask that, but they don't have to answer. So like you learn to, I think, to be more courageous, and you learn to ask the tough questions, and you learn to defend yourself a bit better, probably, and to make yourself more understandable as well. I think each sector has its own culture, and those cultures oftentimes they don't meet. We all think we're speaking the same language, but we're not. But when you use one word in one context, it means something in a different context. So it was really, really good for all of us to learn that.
Breaking down the barriers of the
exactly, yeah.
sectors. And yeah.
Highlighting there what Seamus is talking about, so important. And you'll find this threaded all the way through the program, listening way more deeply than we generally allow ourselves to do when we're in the hustle and bustle of our day-to-day operational lives. So deep listening, active listening, and really practicing and taking the opportunity to ask powerful questions. And it's one of those examples of a power skill that you can then take into any setting that you go into, being the person that asks not necessarily the smartest question, but the one that senses and tunes into what's needed in the moment. Asking those kinds of questions. And I can see Belinda and Seamus both nodding. This is a skill that takes us into so many different helpful contexts, no matter what background you're coming from. Yeah.
Speaking of questions, we do have another in the chat. Beck from Committee of Melbourne is actually wanting to sign up straight away, but Jess Kelly is asking, Seamus and Belinda, how did you go with support from your workplace, given the program takes you off-site for 20-odd days? So, Seamus, maybe over to you first.
I went really, really well until I didn't. So I went really, really well until probably the last couple of weeks, where, because I was in the news business at that particular point, we had some big breaking news stories, and I missed one day of a weekend. We had the weekend towards the end, and I missed that one. But one day out of a whole 10-month program was hardly anything. The organization was so supportive of what I did, and saw the benefits of what I did so well, that I was able to introduce Leadership Victoria at that point to the publisher of The Age, and they came on board as a co-sponsor for many, many years afterwards, and sent more and more people through the system. I think that an organizations that support Leadership Victoria, they can see the personal development, they can see the development that leads to in other staff, and how things progress for them, that they oftentimes, and certainly in the Age's case, they just signed up for it. They just signed up for it whole, I suppose. And obviously then you've got changes of management and so on over an extended period. So those links can break, but we'll reestablish them.
Absolutely. And Belinda, your experience with that?
I think before I applied, I'd had a number of conversations with my various managers about the fact that I was really keen to do this. So I think they had they knew what the requirement would be for me in terms of participation. So I think there's certainly a no surprises approach. I think in that respect is really important. And during the program in 2020, we also had a number of people who participated who were self-employed, and they had quite deliberately made a decision to participate, even though I think for them it was a much harder prospect to kind of have that kind of time commitment over a period of time. But I think if you've got that support from your organisation, it's then about how you make the most of it as well, and how much you engage with the material, how much you engage with the broader group to develop your thinking. And I think it's very worthwhile, obviously, which is quite why Seamus and I are here to talk about it today.
That's great, thank you.
The workload is important to acknowledge, of course, and it is one of those activities in life where you get out what you put in. I just wanted to add to it, because of the very collaborative, collegial way the program operates, you actually don't need to do anything by yourself. There's always support of a peer there. So we always buddy leaders up with another person that they can work really closely in a partnership with throughout the year. And we also do a lot of group work as well. So one of the things that I encourage leaders to do in the program is to really think tactically. If you know you've got busy times coming up when your organisation is going to need you more, maybe have a chat with folks in the program about, look, it's going to be a struggle for me this month. So how could we actually manage things together so that, maybe you're sharing readings, maybe you're collaborating on your project in different ways so that actually your July is easier, but maybe you give something else in September. So think tactically about your time, about your attention and your energy, as well as your actual schedule. And all of those things, I would be encouraging you to have early and very candid conversations with whoever is sponsoring you. And I would include in that your organisation, your family, anybody else that is going to be in your life through the year, so that you can, really get clear and figure out what you might need in order to fully step into the opportunity. Encourage you to have those conversations.
Yes,
great advice. Thank you.
Second that advice. Great advice. We seem to have not had any more questions. I'm wondering, one of the things that I really want to know from Belinda and Seamus is, what do you think that leaders need today that maybe was different to even a couple of years ago, that the Williamson program was able to offer you both?
That's fabulous. I'm hoping Belinda will jump in now.
You can first one, Seamus.
But I don't think she is. I think leadership has changed. I mean, leadership, even in the 15 years, 17 years since I did it, the leadership has changed a lot. We've got a new generation coming through who need different things. One of the things that I do now is I teach at university. I teach journalism at one of the universities, and the young people are different, and they're different and have much more different needs to even the kids of 10 years ago. I think COVID had a big impact on them, and I think that's moving through society sort of slowly. So I think we need to be actually more aware than we ever were before. We need to be able to understand that we've got tasks to do, and everybody in the team will have tasks to do, but we also, as leaders, we need to understand each of our individual team members a little bit better even than we did 5 years ago. And it's much more complicated than it ever was. Yeah.
Yes. What is that? We've never had so many generations in the workplace at one time. That intergenerational.
And so few in the household.
Yeah. Intergenerational workplaces.
Yeah.
Belinda, do you want to speak to that a little bit as well?
I would probably have to say a healthy degree of skepticism. So I've never been an absolutist myself. I've never believed in an essential truth. But I think the information that is coming at us at a constant pace of varying quality and accuracy, I think is something that feels quite different, even in the time since I did the program. And so I think, that sort of need to be asking questions and interrogating the truth that people are bringing to how they see the world has become even more important in the years since I did Williamson. And to some extent it's a little bit scary, because I think even if you sort of reflect on what you might be seeing internationally at the moment, there's a lot of different worldviews that seem to be conflicting with increasing amounts of violence. So yeah, it does feel like precarious time, but I think again the onus always comes back to us and what we could be doing in this space and how we can be trying to influence conversations, in our households and in our community.
Yeah. Interesting as well. You say community there, Belinda, because we often get people who say, well, I don't work in the community sector, so maybe this is not the type of leadership program for me. But one of the things we like to put back to people is that we all have multiple different communities, and your workplace is community, your team is community, your family is your community, the local soccer club that you sit on the committee for is your community. Is there anything that has changed for you about what community is since doing Williamson Community Leadership Program?
I might just start by saying, I mean, that was exactly some of the reflections in my cohort about community. And I think to me, it's an opportunity to actually be asking that question, who is my community? Am I in my community? What can I be doing? And so that those opportunities to make an impact, whether it's sort of on your local soccer club committee, I think those things are really important. What was the question again, Tara? Sorry.
I think the question was more around what does community mean to you now, having done the program, and knowing as well that community means something different to everyone when they come into the program too.
I think community. I think I've, I have for quite some time sort of been active in my local community, and certainly the work that I do at the moment is on, a public housing estate. So the sense of who is community is something that's fairly obvious.
Maybe it's not a question that we need to answer right now. Maybe it's a question that we're posing to the people who are here with us today as spectators to our talk. That what does community mean to you? And maybe to think about what has attracted you to the word community in coming along today. We know that the program is intentionally curated to be diverse. We want people from all different types of backgrounds, intersectionalities, workplaces, sectors. We like to make sure that there's people from the corporate for-profit sector, like Katie mentioned, that there's people from government roles, that there's people from community organisations. And with that special mix, everyone brings the sense of what community means to them. So I guess that's something I'd love for everyone to take away today. Is what does community mean to you? How would you like to impact that community? And what are the skills or capacity that you need to build in order to take those actions? Oh, that's lovely. Someone said community means part of me being a big social system.
That's great. Absolutely. So there's something that I love to do, which I call zooming, not this kind of zoom.
We do enough.
But thinking about where does that thing show up? So the word community, where are the people for whom change will make a difference? And maybe that's the way to look at community. There are layers and layers and layers of bigger and smaller systems. And so here in the program, we look at all of that and we acknowledge the complexity of it. And sometimes we don't know where to look, where to begin. And so I'm loving this thread of the conversation. And it's a really big opportunity in the program to actually go to where the people who need the change are and have those conversations about what might matter to them. So it's a good conversation and a really good thought to be thinking about how could I make use of that kind of opportunity in Williamson.
I guess just touching on, there is another question in the chat that was targeted to Belinda, but I guess from a facilitator point of view would also be good to have your insight too, Katie, in a moment. Would you say this experience is for those whom are in already medium to senior level leadership, wishing to enter a C-suite role, or do you feel it's suitable for also aspiring leaders who are not quite there yet? So Belinda, I guess we'll throw to you first.
I responded to Beck saying I really do think, like leadership as a concept, it's less about the role that you're in at the moment and about where you are in your journey of learning and discovering self. And I think if you're on that journey already, this is absolutely the program for you. And so I think that's probably the better question to ask.
And where is there in there? Do you know what I mean? Like it's like there is no end to this journey. It's a journey and it continues.
Yeah, that's right. And this is where that core belief that leadership is an activity and not a position. So I would invite everyone on this call to do some self-reflection and to tune in. What am I feeling would be a stretch for me in my leadership? What would I aspire to as a leader who has a future? That's the kind of stretch that we want. It's less so about, now I've reached this level of the hierarchy, I'm ready for Williamson. If you're doing your discernment and you're thinking to yourself, is this right for me? How can I make the most of this chance to stretch and grow and be ready to have conversations in the context of this application process? There'll be opportunities to have really good conversations, both with Tara and the team, and also with Williamson Fellows who are part of this conversation with you, about how to think about these things. Where am I in my leadership? And when we talk about being Williamson ready, what on earth does that mean? You know, there'll be actually thought partners in this process that you can nut those things out with. So I would encourage everybody to be thinking, not that you need to already have the answer, but if you have an inkling that there's a stretch there for you, come and talk to us about it, because having that inkling could be a sign that you are Williamson ready, even if you're holding a position that, you know, has 3 or 4 layers of the organization above you. That doesn't matter so much as how are you seeing your leadership potential. So probably that's what I would offer.
Yeah, which is a great segue into, as we start to close down the session today, what the next steps are. As Katie has mentioned, it's really great to seek out Williamson Fellows like Belinda and Seamus. We have almost 2,000 Leadership Victoria Williamson Community Leadership Program fellows out there in the world, and if you're struggling to find someone, you can certainly make contact with me and I can introduce you to someone if you'd like to talk about someone that maybe works in a similar role to you or a similar sector, if you'd like to investigate that. Also, myself as the partnerships lead here at Leadership Victoria, I am your first point of contact if you have any questions about the application process or what's required of you, or whether indeed, like Katie mentioned, you are Williamson ready. That is something that can certainly be done in partnership. We will be opening up the application process on the 24th of this month. Sorry, 24th of next month. So you will have some time. No, it is the 24th of July. This actually screen is incorrect. I'm going to go back and say it's the 24th of June that the applications will be opening. There will be some communication sent out to you all having registered for today's session, and we will be sending through a little bit of a how-to, what to expect for the application process. It's not something that you'll do in one session. It's something that you'll set up. You'll go in and have a look at the questions. You'll have to go away and maybe talk to your manager or your team, and like we've also suggested, the family and people around you, and then you'll formulate some answers to the questions. And then during September, there'll be some interviews and we'll start to make offers soon after that. There's a couple of questions here. One last question, perhaps we have time for. Sally had a question about that. In a world that is getting more and more isolating, how do we create more opportunities to come together, to understand each other, and to work collectively to solve shared issues? Do Williamson is maybe the short answer, but maybe Belinda or Seamus, have you got something that you'd like to add?
Apologies for being a bit of a keyboard warrior here, folks. I didn't mean to. But that question reminded me of what Bill Shorten said to our program when we were doing it, and I think the context was we were talking about politics and how static it was and how immutable to change. And he said, when was the last time you wrote to your local member to raise something that was happening in your community? It's that concept of every action causes a reaction. And so, you know, my question to Shelley, sorry, I actually initially thought it was Alan, but my question to Shelley is, you know, it starts with those challenging conversations. It starts by engaging someone in a conversation when their views frustrate you so much, but that's where the kind of process for breaking down that isolation comes from.
Being okay with the difference. Yeah. I would like to say a big thank you to everyone today for coming along. I'd like to say a special thank you to Belinda and to Seamus. It is so wonderful to have access to and to hear from and to continue to learn from our wonderful Leadership Victoria alumni network. I find it to be absolutely the best part of my job, speaking to our wonderful leaders and hearing about the journeys. And as Seamus said, it's an ongoing. No one is finished the journey. No one comes to me and says, "Okay, I'm finished being a leader. I no longer need to access Leadership Victoria." We continue to do so. And again, thank you to everyone for attending today. And if you do have any questions, please reach out. We look forward to hearing from you as we enter into the application phase for the Williamson 2026 campaign. Thank you.
Bye all.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.